right, guys, this is Luke. I just wanted to touch on something that came up with an athlete here. Josh, we were doing a speed segment. We were trying to get his 5K time down, probably try to put him in a good position to run a really good marathon this fall. And even when he came on in his training profile, he was talking about how, there was guys that would beat him in the 5K and 10K distances that he would beat pretty handily in a half marathon and marathon. And we're not, we weren't really sure what was going on. I said, well, we can observe and stuff like that. And we were looking at he started doing some races. His last one was Memorial Day here. And then also Josh wanted a form analysis. So he sent me some videos and looked at it. And so over the last couple of weeks, it really started coming together. And so I want to just kind of go over some stuff with you that we saw with Josh that may help some of you out here, right? So here is the data from Josh's last 5K he did here. So he was fully peaked, ready to run fast, and he'd been ready. So this was the third of, I think, 3 races that we did. But when he's running easy, his cadence is, this is what we're going to be looking at a lot here, is this average cadence here. So I'm actually going to get out of this one. I'm going to show you his easy warm-up here. So you can see his warm-up here, his average cadence, right around that 180 mark, right where people want to be. So no problem there. But then let's look at his 5K race itself and see how that cadence, 202, 203, 205. The average cadence was 204. Splits were really good, a little quick on the first mile, but that's actually right where he wanted to be. And then he was able to maintain 6:11 the last 2 miles, right? So it wasn't like pacing wise things were wrong. I immediately just drew my focus into that average cadence, and that coming from a 180 to over 200 is a significant jump in the cadence, right? And if you look at what speed is stride length times stride frequency, right? So in other words, in order for you to get faster, you can either increase stride rate and keep the stride length the same, or you can increase both, or you can increase stride length and keep stride rate similar. Most people, it's a small combination of both, right? You'll see a little bit increase in turnover, but you'll also see an increase in stride length. Now, if you don't see that, if you just see an increase in stride length with no increase in stride rate, chances are at that point you're overstriding. You're probably taking too long of a stride, landing way out in front of your body with the heel first, and that's not going to be productive in increasing speed. So with Josh here, it was actually the opposite. Like, I don't have his stride length data, and that's where if you can go into Garmin Connect or Chorus or wherever you can and pull that data, you would really be able to narrow that down, right? You'd actually be able to go in, see what my stride, my stride length was doing. So like you can see out his cadence here. Now, if I had some stride length data to go along with that, I could really do a better analysis. But we don't. But we kind of know, right, from just looking at it. Chances are, and then watching Josh's video, he sent me a video from another 5K he did. And so Josh looked almost like he was not quite leaning back, but he was very straight up and down. And it was almost like he was marching really fast, right? So that would explain why the stride length the stride rate got really high. But in all honesty, probably what happened was the stride length probably shortened up or stayed about the same, right? So he could have increased. He's increasing from his easy pace, right? And that's not the problem. But it's a limiting factor for him moving forward. Where he would want to be is in a position where maybe instead of 180, he's like 195, but he's just getting a longer stride length. And so what happens with that is usually, well, with Josh, he was just leaning way back. He was leaning way back. So a simple cue to just lean forward from the ankles might be all he needs. But talking to Josh and knowing what his strength is there's probably some other things too. Like for a lot of people, what it's going to be is probably that cue just to lean forward from the ankles a little bit. And that just kind of keeps your momentum going forward. It's going to automatically lengthen that stride out a little bit. But what you'll see for most runners is that it's going to be hip flexor tightness. So that psoas, the iliopsoas, those muscles there, it's going to, those connect actually in the back and they attach in the front of the leg. And so that's actually going to probably aid in pulling you upright because you're getting your back muscles are tight. When you feel like your back muscles are tight, but reality it's the hip flexor that is tight. So you're getting pulled in a direction you don't want to be. And then, so if you loosen that up, what's that going to help with? If you loosen that up, you're going to be able to extend that hip behind you further, which is going to allow you to push off more and push yourself forward more, right? Which is what we want to do. And then also a lot of times people want to strengthen that hamstring. And if you're a person who does a lot of squats and things like that, but you don't focus on the glutes and in the hamstrings, that would make a lot of sense. And running for most people is very quad dominant, which means the hamstrings are going to be a lot weaker than the quads. And if it's done right, you're using more of your glute and your hamstring in that hip extension. You want to be thinking hip extension more than hip flexion. So hip flexions when you're lifting your knee, hip extensions when you're pushing your foot out behind you, right? And that's where you want to be, is in a position where you can get that foot behind you more, which is going to lengthen the stride out. And those muscles are a lot more fatigue resistant as well. So you're going to be able to actually do that with more power and be faster for longer, right? So that's probably, so with Josh, we're basically working on all three of those things, right? So that's what we're going to do. But I want to show you then what that would look like. Another athlete of mine who, they're about the same ability as Josh. Josh is looking to run under 3 hours. Gil's about a 250. He's a low to mid 250 guy. So they're pretty close together. And so what you'll see with this is a workout for Gil. So let me make sure I can see you. So he did 8x600 at 10K pace. So roughly this, within a few seconds a mile for what they're trying to do here. And you can see, he's right at 6-minute pace for a lot of these, right? So he's averaging a 6-minute pace for his workout. And let's take a look at what his average cadence is: 176, 173, 187, right? So, so for his hard sessions here, 0.37, yeah, he's getting up there. So he's like 187, 185. So upper 180s on his hard parts, right? Which is still 15 beats below plus from where Josh was at, or not beats, stride frequency. He's about 15 steps, 15 steps per minute behind what Josh is at a roughly, actually he's running faster than Josh at that point. He's running 6-minute pace. Josh is running 6:10 pace at that point, right? So that's where you would ideally like to be. And you can see on his easy range, he's like 174. So easy paces, they're about the same cadence, but Gil running faster is resulting in less steps per minute, right? And so that's where you want to be. And I know with Gil for a fact that Gil does a lot of strength training, lower body, not just doing squats, but I know Gil has done a lot of work with the lower body. But that's ideally where you'd want to be, right? And so if you're in a spot where you feel like you're limited on how fast you can run, it might not have anything to do with VO2 max or anything like that. It might have everything to do with stuff like stride rate, right? So if you feel like you're in that position, what I would do is just look at your data, right? And if you can actually go in and see what your stride length data is on that, if you can actually go into your Garmin Connect or your Coros and look at that, that would be the very first place to start. And then all I would do is, if you really kind of want to know and you want to see what you look like when you run, just have somebody videotape you. So I just had Josh had his buddy videotape me, and then we use an app called OnForm. I don't know if you have to pay for it or not. I don't think I have enough people in there to to do it, but you can use something like that. And if you want to draw lines and stuff just to see where you're at and draw angles. But honestly, I didn't even have to draw anything on Josh's just to be like, oh, that looks off, right? Like I didn't need to know the angle. I was like, oh, that just looks off. That doesn't look right. And so putting the video data with the data collected on the workout, we were actually able to decipher quite a bit with what was actually going on with Josh. And so will he ever be, will that problem ever go away? I don't know. It's all probably going to be dependent on how much he works on it and if he stays consistent with it. And, I don't know. And I'm not saying that Josh isn't. I'm just saying in general, that's what you have to look at. And it'll definitely get better. Like if he's going to work on the hip flexor. We're going to work on just cueing ourselves. And it's really only a problem for him when he's trying to run really fast, right? So it's not an issue where he's like that every run, right? Because even if he goes out and does a marathon pace workout, his numbers are probably going to be fine. It's really when he's just trying to run 10K pace and faster, right? So if you are in that situation where you feel like that, that's what I would look at. And then, you can, if you're looking at the data, you're looking at the video, you can see a lot, right? You can go, and then that's the first thing I would notice is, do I need to lean forward? And that might even mean I need more core control of what's going on with my body. So that's always it always usually comes down to the core, weak and tight hip flexors, and then potentially tight but mostly weak hamstrings is usually what a lot of the problems come down to, right? So that would be those would be the first places I would start with strengthening and lengthening those things, and give it time. It's not something that's going to happen overnight, but it's something that if you work on significantly, and then also, that's just going to be something that's more beneficial to you anyway. Because if you can open up that top end, that's going to make that marathon pace feel a little bit more comfortable. It's going to make all those paces feel more comfortable. It's going to be able to provide you an avenue to get faster without necessarily doing more volume and more workouts, because that might not be the issue. It might be just a structural issue, right? So anyway, I thought that was really interesting. I don't see a ton. I've had it with another athlete in the past, but it is something that comes up. But it's something that I would, just fun to look at in case you like looking at those things and wondering why things are working the way they are. It's something that you could check into. So anyway, hope that helps out some people. I'll talk to you later. See ya.